Okay, hello everyone. Uh, right up front, let me know how the audio sounds. I've got a new microphone connected, so uh, the good news is I can adjust more settings, turn up the volume if I'm too quiet, like I was last week. I was pretty quiet. Now hopefully I sound pretty good, but I can also make some little adjustments if it's not working quite as well as it should. If I sound noticeably worse than I did last week. A big pro with this new setup is that I don't have to wear the headphones that I was wearing just to use the little microphone thing. So hopefully this works out well because it's a little more comfortable. Hopefully it'll be easier to stay awake. Uh, Speaking of staying awake, I do have my coffee for the Fika portion of the live stream, but it is decaf. I don't know why I didn't consider that in previous weeks. Just forgot that that exists, but it's probably the right choice for a Sunday evening. Besides that, of course, we have our Fika. Look at this. I hardly know what these are, only what Emma has told me. She's next door and will criticize me if I pronounce it wrong. These are biscuits. Biscuits. Yes, some kind of gluten-free almond crust with a buttercream and different fruit flavors inside. Honestly, they look and sound really good, so I'm pretty excited. I've never even heard of these, never even tried them, so that's, taking things up a notch this week for the live stream. Yeah. Still waiting for anyone to let me know in the chat if I sound okay. And then we can get down to business. Ooh, hot coffee. I barely got live in time, so yeah. That's why it's even messier than usual behind me. These egg cartons I've had for a year or so. They were meant to be temporary, and yet here they are. Hopefully, hopefully that's helping the sound as well. Okay. I will have. You know what? Let's start with with a biscuit. 4 flavors. We've got pear, and I was just talking with Emma today how interesting it is in Sweden. Pear is a big flavor. You get pear flavored soda, pear flavored ice cream, pear flavored everything. That was not on my radar back in California. I don't know if I've ever had pear flavored things in California for whatever reason. I'm very curious if it's just like a user research thing that Americans prefer apple flavors. But yeah, pear flavor is big here. And I'm trying to remember if it's big in Germany as well and other parts of Europe. I think it's kind of a thing a lot of places outside of the US. Interesting little thing. So yeah, I guess I have to start with the pear flavored one, right? After talking it up. Try out my first ever biscuit. Crunchy chocolate shell. Oh yeah, that is solid. Super good all around. I mean, might be one of my favorites. I think it's got an almond paste on the inside as well. And then it's got this buttercream. And then the chocolate is like a nice crispy chocolate shell. So it's got this just kind of, yeah, a nice bite to the dough. And then the soft cream and the crunchy shell. It's a textural explosion. Good one. Yet another thing that's been off of my radar. This is why everyone needs to travel. You're not going to find this in the US. And to be frank, a lot of things back in California you won't find here. So wherever you're from, make it a point to travel. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's something that everyone could enjoy. There's obviously different types of people. Some of you might prefer to travel alone versus traveling with friends, traveling with family, but it's something you gotta do. Just opens up your perspective on a lot of things. Hmm. All right, cool. We got some people in the chat. Good to hear that the sound is good. Yes, Valentine, wonderful pastries. I'm very excited. These pastries are setting the mood for tonight. I think it's going to be a really good stream. They are super good. I built it different. Hey, jag mår jättebra. Särskilt efter den här biskvi. I hope you're all feeling well. All right. So I kind of like the structure these streams have started to form. For one thing, the pastries. Before the stream, I'm like, do I really want to have Fika right now as my last meal of the night? Then I eat it, and I realize I've been foolish, and it's never a bad time for Fika. Only in the left ear. You know what? I think you're right. Let me fix that for you. I think I can fix that. Mono. Okay, now the sound should be better. Thanks for the feedback. Like I've said from my first stream of the year, I'm just trying to slowly and incrementally improve my live stream setup. It's been, I stopped streaming for a while, and then I kind of forget everything, and I hadn't streamed in Sweden, so I had honestly a pretty shoddy streaming setup back in California, even though I'd done quite a few back there. And then I came here, and it was a bit stressful, to say the least, to have to start over. But I'm also starting fresh, and that means you can start better, do it right, little by little. Let me show you the setup, actually. It's kind of on theme for the stream of the day. I mean, so here's my new microphone. Wait, I got RGB. It's just my lights are so bright for the stream, but there's RGB. How's that? Okay, it doesn't show up too well, but that's going rainbow. And I got plant lights. Those are productive RGB. But I'm also not like a gamer, so I don't have the obsession that some people do. But I do love colored lights, so yeah, I see the appeal. But yes, the setup. Microphone. Well, okay, I'm gonna have to mute it to take the cover off. I don't know if there's any audio files out there. I can't claim to be one myself, but I am pretty proud of this microphone because I built it myself. Because I was looking up microphones for recording music, and everyone recommends the Shure microphone that everyone gets, S87 or something. Like I said, I'm not an audiophile, but on one of the audio subreddits, people were talking about building your own microphone, and that was right up my alley. Well, not right up my alley. Honestly, a little intimidating. I say often that I'm not really big on the electronic side of making, but it's also something I'm always trying to improve on because, I think I'm pretty great with the 3D modeling and design and 3D printing. I'm a good artist as well, but electronics unlocks so much. So that was a fun project, doing all the soldering and building circuits in here. I unfortunately didn't end up making a video out of the build, and I can't tell you exactly what the model is. If anyone's interested, comment on this video after it's done being live, and then I can respond with information on that after I look it up. Maybe some of you know. It's a very common microphone build. Really nice condenser microphone. Or at least, you know, for the price, it should be pretty good. I have no idea how I sound right now. I just got this stream ready to go last minute. But there's that. And then I also just picked up this really nice audio interface, the UA Volt 276. It's called something like that. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about my setup that I don't actually have any knowledge about. But hopefully it's sounding okay. And I'm also gonna be able to dial in the settings over the week. So next live stream should sound even better. Now, the reason I bring this up is because we do have a bit of an audio related project for this live stream. It's not to do with the microphone, but rather with my speakers. If you watched my last long form video a long time ago about some updates to my home print, I showed my IKEA speakers. I built some custom grills for them, and I mounted one on the side of my monitor here. But since then, I found a pretty good deal on a decent audio setup at the thrift store. Stadsmissionen, the local thrift store here, or at least my favorite thrift store in Kalmar. If you know, you know. And I managed to get a more proper audio setup with some creative speakers. You know, we got the two left and a right, and underneath we got a subwoofer. So I was definitely impressed with the IKEA Vapaby speaker. Super impressive. That one little box put out pretty darn good audio, but it's a bit better with these 3 speaker setups. Not gonna lie. Okay, I have to have another bite of this pear biscuit. It's so good. Oh yeah. Whenever people ask me about what I miss the most from California, besides the obvious answers of friends and family, it's the food, because there's so much variety, so many different cultures. Ironically, it's not like the American food, but the fact that there's food from so many other places in the world available in one county. But Swedes have pastries on lock, I gotta say. This kind of blows donuts out of the water, even the really good donuts. But you know, maybe it's the novelty of it. This is the first time I've had these biscuits. So. Sorry, so yes. The audio setup. I mentioned I've got these speakers jumping around as always. But it's my again. I'm gonna show an update for what we worked on last live stream, but I feel like now I'm on this tangent, so I'm gonna stay on this for a little moment. Wow. Maybe I do need caffeinated coffee. I lost my stream of thought. This decaf tastes pretty good, but doesn't give that kick. No, but yeah. So many of my 3D printing projects revolve around keeping things tidy. So I'm always trying to make space, and you know, keeping things tidy with my lifestyle is tough because I'm always collecting new things. I have so many little gadgets and rocks and random things that I collect. I'm going to that Stadsmissionen thrift store far too often, so constantly collecting more and more things, and gives me my dopamine rush. I enjoy that. I'm not planning to become an absolute minimalist, but I do want to keep a little bit tidy, or at least make it easier to clean. And on my desktop, that means getting things off the desk. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get the speakers off the desk. And let me see if I can give you an idea. I do have this one extra monitor mount now. That's where the IKEA speaker used to be. Right now it's holding my mighty calipers, which is actually pretty great. I've been considering what to do with that extra monitor arm now that I don't have that speaker, and I also have quite a large monitor already. Let's see if I can show you. I've got, this big curved Samsung monitor, so that's already like 2 monitors. And then I've just got a TV on top showing my live stream stuff right now. That's pretty much all I use it for, because it's very awkward to look up like that. So I pretty much just have my video studio. Here's behind the scenes. This is how I'm running my live stream. OBS. Hey, look at all these cool people. That's you right there. But yeah, so I was like, what do I use this arm for? And just today I stuck my calipers up there because it's the magnet sticking to the screw. And I think I need a pegboard. I miss my pegboards so much. Oh, this is absolutely a tangent again. I'm jumping all over the place because the project for today is not a pegboard, just to be clear. But I am dreaming of building my own pegboards. I mentioned this in the last live stream. I got these bearings that I was gonna use, these bushings to make a guide so that I could hand drill my own pegboards. I got this 6mm Forstner bit, but then I realized the bearings I bought are not 6mm in inner diameter. I looked it up and the diameter is listed as B6. Bushing 6, bearing 6, I don't know what it means, but it's not 6mm. Oh. Yeah. Sorry, that was frustrating because I bought these bushings for like $14 for 2 little pieces of metal, and they're the wrong size, and I bought them a year ago before actually measuring them. That's my fault, but far beyond the return window, and I'm not sure if I'll ever find a use for those. If you can think of any use for... Anyways. I will be building a pegboard soon enough. But that's not today's project. I built it differently. What webcam is this? I don't know if you're referring to the webcam I'm holding, or the webcam... There's 2 webcams. This one, I just have this privacy shield that I printed. That was someone else's design. I printed it very, very long ago, so I can't say. And this one that I'm holding is an even older Logitech that, I just customized it. I forget if it was broken or if it didn't have manual focus before. I think it might have been a fixed focus webcam, and then I took it apart so that I could add this manual focus by just unscrewing the lens that's on there. And that works pretty well. So now I can do like cool macro shots. That's what it's not the highest quality webcam, but I can use it to get close-ups of my sketchbook. And for now, I'm just using it to point around the room and show you guys things, because that's my setup right now. I've got these 2 webcams. Of course, I have my very nice camera that I use to film my videos. It's a GH6 that I'm up to now. I had the 5 for a while. I had the 4 for like a week before I found someone selling the 5 for the same price. So traded those out, and but that one, it's a bit of a process to stream using it because I'm using the USB-C storage. Oh, I can't be bothered to explain. I'm gonna eat another pastry. Then we're going to talk about last week's project. Then we're going to start this project. Nina, you haven't missed too much. You've missed the common ramblings of Devin. I mean, you missed me enjoying my first biscuit pastry, but I'll be probably enjoying my second nearly just as much. Although that one was pear flavored, which is extra novel to me. But let's see. I already forgot what the other ones are. I know this is a strawberry. This orange one might be orange. I should be able to tell by tasting them. Mm. Actually, I have pretty bad taste. I'm not very good at identifying flavors. Emma's yelling at me from next door. It is orange. That was my guess. I was gonna guess orange. But yeah, it's delicious. Mmm. Hey, 1 second. I gotta grab a napkin. I've gotta. Are you getting frustrated with me? She's making fun of my lack of being astute. Because obviously the orange one is orange flavored. That's probably the most obvious, right? Okay, so I did quickly mention the goal of the stream today is to design a way to mount these speakers off the desk. It's going to be challenging in some ways, but I think I have a pretty good solution. We'll get to that, but really quickly, I want to show what I worked on last week because I've been plugging away with the design, but I haven't quite made it public yet. I'm getting carried away with it. So I think this is what I designed. It was this little hook to go under a shelf or a table. So as opposed to most hooks that go on a wall, this one was mounted upside down like this, which doesn't change things too much. In fact, I've used the same process to design wall hooks as well by now, but that just changes the hook design a bit. Got this little extra thing here so that we can hang things upside down. If it was this way, I might cut the hook off here, you know? But check it out. Or maybe I should use my alt camera. I don't know if that's better. Yeah, that looks pretty good. See? Nice little camera. I can focus it. Yeah, it worked really well. It's another total success from the live streams, I gotta say. I always am a little distracted during these streams, so I wonder if I'm doing things right, but it's yet another success. With this particular hook, it was a success on my first try. I have had to do some tinkering with some other versions of the hook, but yeah, it worked really well. So as a reminder, I created a hook that's 2 parts. I've done hooks like this before, but the new addition I came up with was this kind of buckling mechanism where these have a little bit of compliance and these little bumps so that it actually snaps into place so it'll be more secure on the ceiling or on a wall or wherever. It can be swapped out relatively easily, but it won't accidentally come undone if you're just taking a hat off of a hook or something like that. I'm super happy with it, I must say. So much so that I, came up with several different sizes. I had one in between this as well. Unfortunately, most of them are already being used around the house. I'm immediately jumping into testing of all of these. I made some taller ones as well. So these are all to go underneath, hold different widths of straps and different, people have their own needs. So I like to offer a lot of options. I made some beefier ones if you're hanging heavier things. And I've also started making some wall hooks based on my earlier super simple wall hook design, but now I've integrated the same buckle snapping mechanism. Super satisfying and nice. And yeah, by printing it in 2 separate orientations, we can take advantage of the extra strength that 3D prints have in certain orientations. So this hook has the layers running vertically. So, you know, it's not like if I printed it this way, and this little tip would have very little surface area between layers, so it would break easier than it should. Meanwhile, this part going on the wall and having screws running through it has layers this way, so that the screw is actually perpendicular to the layer lines. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain, but these two different parts of one hook have their own orientations, which makes the entirety stronger and work better for its purpose. Oh, my nose is itching. I was gonna say I've raised the stakes by trying a new pastry. Who knows if I'm gonna have some kind of anaphylactic shock, some crazy reaction to this new thing that I've never tried. Itchy nose. What can it mean? Raspberry. Very good. Very good. Although the chocolate is melting on my fingers now, I guess from a designer's standpoint, this pastry might want more of a crust rim so that you can hold it without getting your hands on the chocolate so easily. Very, very good pastry, but it's not perfect quite yet. Yeah, so those hooks, I'll have them up on things over the next week. At least I'll have some of them coming up next week in the next few days. Now that I've tested them and confirmed them. Now my throat is actually itching. I wonder if I'm allergic to something here, or if it's just my messy room. I don't think I have many food allergies. It's just grass and dust and mold. All right, let's start with today's project. Speakers off the desk. We have some good news and some bad news in terms of the design here. So the good news is that these speakers are intended to be pointed right towards your ears, and their distance between them is pretty much the width of my monitor. So pretty quickly, I figured if I just mount my speakers to the side of my monitor here, they're going to be almost exactly at the peak point of where they should be. So that's an easy answer there. Mount them to the side of the speaker. Easy enough, right? Almost. The challenge is that if I can reach the camera over the back of the speaker here. Oh, sorry, I've got my bright lights. But I think you can see that we've got a bit of a weird curve to the back of the display here. It's actually a compound curve, so it's curving both from top to bottom and around the back. A little tricky to get measurements for that. It's not something that we could use last week's technique of, or the week before we were designing things using the flatbed scanner. Wouldn't be easy to throw this on the scanner. And actually the problem is nearly identical for the speaker itself. It's a little more flat. You could probably get away with mounting something flat to it, but it does have a curve to it. You can see it more here from top to bottom. There's a definite curve. This way, not quite as much, but still, we've got some complex curved surfaces. And my very first thought when it came to designing some, basically some way to mount these two things together, two curved parts, I had a few thoughts. First thought was, this could be a good use case for 3D scanning. But 3D scanning is still kind of tedious. You usually want to 3D scan in good conditions. black glossy plastic like this is among the worst or more difficult things to scan. It just would be a bit of a hassle. So while it would be a great way to get really accurate representations of both of these things, and I could bring those into Fusion and then model the curves to perfectly match, that is not the answer I'm going with today. Another thought I had was a contour gauge, which let's see if I can pull up an image really quickly. For those of you who aren't familiar, a contour gauge is a tool that, yeah, here's one that's made out of plastic. So let's see. Contour gauge. It's a bunch of plastic strips that have some friction so that you can press them against surfaces and record the curves. And I was like, oh, that could be kind of fun because we could use the contour gauge to measure these curves, and then we could throw the contour gauge onto the flatbed scanner and kind of tie it into that theme of 2 weeks ago. That would be one way to get the curves. But with the complex curve like the back of the monitor, still kind of tricky, not ideal. And more importantly, I don't have a contour gauge. I considered changing the theme of the week to designing a contour gauge first, and then next week doing the rest of the project. But I had a contour gauge in California, and to be honest, I don't think I used it more than 3 times over 10 plus years. It was one of the tools I was required to get in design school for college. I used it once in college for a project where I had to create a perfect foam replica of an object. It was a Windex bottle, a spray bottle, and that has lots of complex curves, and the contour gauge served its purpose there. But yeah, that was one time. I don't even remember the other times I used it. It was certainly I used it at some point on Make Anything for a very early project. It has its uses. If you like have to make a trim, if you have to match a trim, like let's see if you can see this, showing you more of the mess. This trim along the floor, say there's a gap you wanted to fill, you could easily use the contour gauge to get a reference of that fancy pattern. And that would be a fair use for it. If you're a carpenter, maybe you want a contour gauge, but I never use a contour gauge, so I was thinking, no, I'd rather not design one just to use it for this one project. I have to remind myself not to go on these endless missions of trying to make things and making it way harder than it needs to be. So I decided to channel my inner designer and really think up a solution that is both smart and easy. And then it came to me. Flexible mounts. I've been printing with TPU a lot lately, so why not use TPU thin enough to flex, then use some mounting tape on the back of that and just let the inherent flexibility of it stick the two things together. And I think it's going to work really well. I do. So, let's see. I'm going to give a quick sketch. If this looks all right. I've been wanting to do some sketching. I need to work on my camera setup too. That's another option for something I can mount up here. Well, my microphone, I don't know. Microphone, webcam, maybe something else would go on the monitor arm, but alas. Here's my idea. We got the curved monitor, funky curved monitor. So I'm going to make a hinge between the two because I do want to be able to adjust the position of the speakers slightly, but I'm thinking something like this. So this all being TPU, this here it's curved, but really it would be printed flat on the bed. Put some high bond double stick tape here. Boop, 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 boop. That can flex to conform to all sorts of different surfaces. So not only will it be easier to design, but it'll also be more versatile so other people can use it, because I'm sure it's a very small margin of people who have the same two things they're trying to stick together as I do, these specific creative speakers and this monitor mount. Henk de How. The speakers are not too heavy. I'm confident that weight won't be too much of an issue. There could be a little bit of sag, but I think I'll be able to compensate for it. And also, the awesome thing about something like a Shure 90A TPU is you can really affect the flexibility based on how thick you print the parts. So you can even have different thicknesses within the same part and have some parts flex while other parts are nearly as stiff as PLA or any other print. I'm also using this VHB tape for most of my projects where I'm trying to tape things like these hooks that I've been using. I have screw mounts, of course, but a lot of them I've also just been using acrylic double stick tape to stick it on my kitchen tiles and things like that. But that stuff works for most cases. In this case, I'm going to use some VHB tape, which is a little more permanent. This is a knockoff tape. These Chinese pirates have been very clever. Oh, it's not 3M, but it's 3M. I think that's so funny. Yeah. MMM. I think it was advertised as 3M VHB tape, but no, it's just 3Ms. Pretty funny. I'll give them that. And that, there were reviews. It has good reviews. I'm in Sweden now, so I'm closer to China, so it's less of like, I don't know. It's probably still controversial, maybe. All right. Evia, thank you. Thank you for the compliments. I'm loving it in Sweden. I'm so happy with my decision to relocate, and specifically very happy that I ended up where I am. I'm sure I'd have a crazy adventure moving anywhere across the world, because it's just such a game changer to like switch things up like that. I lived in California for forever, so to move to a totally different country, so cool. If you can do it, and if you're confident enough to do it, I highly recommend it. To be honest, I probably wouldn't have done it without my sister already living here and being fully settled to help me out a ton. But it still was a bit of a gamble. It definitely was a risk, and it's paid off so well. I built it different. Any thoughts on making another board game like Tippy Tree? Well, certainly not exactly like Tippy Tree, but I do have board games in the works, both more complex and quite simple. I think you'll be very happy with both of them, at least one of them. There's going to be something for everyone. I'm really excited about several of the games I've got coming out. Some have been long in the works and with partners and some other experts in the field. It's going to be really cool. One of the best projects I've worked on in a long time. Maybe my favorite 3D printing project, perhaps. So keep an eye out. Anyways, like I said, one hinge and then another hinge. And it's probably going to be more or less the same thing on both sides because, like I said, just two flexible strips that I can stick onto these speakers and onto my monitor. This side might have a double thing here with a screw running through. We're going to work with some threads today, some screws, designing that, making them work well 3D printed. I think that'll be some good info for those of you out there. I think that sketch, again, is pretty much all I'm going to do before I take it into Fusion. I think I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do. Although if any of you have some insight as to, like, obviously the more like of these levels of hinges connecting, the more stable it will be, I guess I could say. Like if I had 2 and 2 like that with a screw running through the center, that would be really strong. But I'm also considering just doing 1 and 1, making them thicker, and it'll be screwed together. I feel like that'll be enough, and that'll affect the flexibility a little less. Maybe I'll go with my initial gut here, have a 2 and a 1. Just so that there's like some sandwich action going on. I don't really want to make it so that I have to adjust the screw to like swivel these two parts. I want the TPU to act as a bit of a friction fit, if that makes sense. Yeah, GoPro, make it like a GoPro mount. I think those are like 3 and 2, right? But see, those are being used for people who are jumping out of planes and stuff like this. This is a rather lightweight speaker just sitting on my monitors. I feel like that might be overkill. And I might just be able to get away with a simpler design. And maybe it'll even work better in some ways. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the best route is to go here. But I also don't think it matters too much. It's not going to be a super consequential decision here. For the most part, the speakers are going to stay where they are, but I want them to swivel so that I can, specifically, I want to be able to turn this one, which will be facing like this. I want to be able to turn it this way so that I can point outside of my office door, and that's where my kitchen stands, because sometimes I like to play music into my kitchen. And these high-end, these I think they're tweeters. Are they tweeters or just the stereo speakers? They're very directional. So I do want them pretty much pointed right at my ears. And like I said, with this curved monitor, it's kind of the perfect width to create this triangle of sound into my ears. The sound will be really clear and nice. But I also want to be able to point it out the door just when I want to listen while I'm cooking in the kitchen and stuff like that. So it's going to be on a hinge. Okay. I think I really might be allergic to that raspberry biscuit. My nose is just itching. Nina, having trouble coming up with ideas of things to design. I mean, to be honest, yeah, Hank's advice works well for me because there's always something around the house that I think can be improved. But if that's not working for you, maybe look around the house and find something that's not matching your aesthetic as much as it could, for example. Maybe you want to just redesign a housing or a case for something, or personalize that. maybe start with things that are a little more visual rather than requiring some huge novel functional change. I don't know. Other than that, like, it's knowledge is power, you know? I love the thrift store. That's where I get a lot of inspiration. Uh, Upcycling things, buying things that are super cheap because they're kind of broken, and then using 3D printing to fix them. That's always fun for me. And also just let people know you have a 3D printer because they'll start telling you things that they need. So that's another way, I suppose. All right. I think it's about time we jump into Fusion. How about that? Okay, so I think the actual design here will be really quick, thankfully, because I've been rambling for so long. What's new? For one thing, I want the flexible portion of this design to print flat on the build plate. It's also going to be symmetrical, so we can start with a center line. I'll build that line coming up from the origin, make it a center line. It's automatically constrained as a vertical line. So there we go. Now we can draw half of the design. We'll draw a line on the bottom. We're going to give it some thickness. And here's going to be the hinge. The hinge will also have a hole running through it because we're going to have a screw running through that hinge. Let's see. The thickness. This is where experience comes into play. I've worked with a lot of TPU, so I can imagine how thick I need this strip to be. I want it to be fairly sturdy. Like I said, there might be some drooping if I make it all too light. And I know this TPU will probably be will be flexible enough up to 3 millimeters. I'm gonna go with a 2 millimeter thickness. We're gonna extrude all of this after the fact, so I will extrude it to match the width of the VHB tape here, maybe a little bit wider, but that's not a concern yet. We can think about the amount of, basically the width of this strip, which will equate to the amount of tape we use. This tape is quite strong. I think we can get away with 80 millimeters. 80 millimeters of VHB tape on the monitor, 80 millimeters on the speaker should be plenty to keep everything stuck right where I want it to be. It's also a good length, like I can imagine that being stuck onto the speaker. Like, you know, as always, I suggest using calipers to kind of visualize the ideas, so maybe I will want to go with less after visualizing this. There, 80 millimeters on the side of the speaker. I mean, seems pretty perfect to me. Oh, by the way, from this view, you can see these PlayStation controllers, and these are actually mounted using the same technique as the hooks I designed. I used the exact same snapping dovetail design that I used for those hooks from last week's live stream. Made some mounts for my PlayStation controllers as well. I forgot to share that earlier. Just another thing that I've been getting, you know, I kind of got carried away with these hooks since last week, and I've been doing nothing else besides making more and more hooks. That's very typical of me. Anyways, yeah, that visualization, I'm happy with that, and I think it'll work well. Next up, we've got this distance. This is going to be the hole that we have a screw running through. The screw, while it could be printed laying flat, I think I'm actually just going to print this vertically. which is not the best for strength when it comes to layer adhesion. But if I print it with enough shells, and if the diameter is large enough, it's still not a problem. So I'm just going to make a really nice chunky screw. It's going to be, let's say, 14 millimeters in diameter. And so this can be 15. We don't need to make the clearances super tight. And you know what? I'm actually going to start designing, I think, all the parts within this sketch. And I am going to do the sandwich design I mentioned, so it's nice and easy and symmetrical. Now we're only designing half here. You just realize that we're going to mirror everything across this center line. Oh my gosh. This is embarrassing, but I just learned this trick today on the Fusion subreddit, and I think someone was telling me to do this during last live stream. If I have this dimension, I can just click. Oh, is that not true? Someone mentioned that you can click on another dimension. No, because that's just going to tie the two. There's some way to, like, tie them together more easily. Darn. What is it? Do I click on the dimension and then click here? Ah, there's some way to automatically connect those dimensions. If anyone knows in the chat, just let me know, because I heard it today and I was like, wow, if that's true, I've been doing things more difficult for a long time. Yeah, so I know you can reference, for example, here's how I would have done it before. I would have said strip equals 2 millimeters. And then I can go to this one and just make this one called strip. And then they're referenced to each other. Whoops. But is there an easier way of doing that? Whoops, I undid too many times. Strip. So this is useful if you are using dimensions that will be tied together throughout your entire project. Now, if I print this and it doesn't work, I can make this 4 millimeters, and this one also becomes 4 millimeters. Obviously, in this case, it's just 2 dimensions, so they don't need to be tied together, but, Yeah, I suppose you can also look into here. There's a parameters menu, and you can find it here, and it'll have a default name. I don't know. That's too complicated for me in most cases, or just like, especially here. Also, very often you can just reference things or like make things equal with constraints. For example, these 2 lines, I could do a collinear constraint, and then if I change this, the other one will stay collinear. That's one way to tie them together. But actually, lately I've been trying to avoid having these constraints too much because they actually can break sometimes and it gets very cluttered when you have too many. I really think Fusion can improve the way that you can sort through constraints. For example, when you have one point with like 5 different coincident constraints, it can be very hard to select the one you want. So in this case, instead of just doing that collinear constraint, I might actually draw a physical construction line here, constrain that as vertical, and then it basically has the same effect, but you have more of a visual reference of the constraint there. And it's easier to delete it by just deleting that construction line down the line. Anyways, here we have this piece here. Now, this is being printed in TPU, so we want this to be a little thicker. We want it to be rather chunky. I'm going to go with 14 as well. Could be 15. Sure, let's do 15 here. And because this is a center line, as you can see, this dimension is going all the way to the imaginary other side of this design. I will mirror all of this. Oh, maybe I'll mirror it actually once it's a physical thing. So we're gonna have the same thing here. Actually, when you have a bolt running through a hinge like this, you often want the sandwiching hinge to be slightly smaller. That way this inner one stays loose. The friction is going to be between these two parts. This is going to have a very small gap. I'm going to make it 0.2, but it's going to be basically, we're going to tighten bolts so that it can be as tight as we need it to be. So this I'm just going to make 14 point. Well, let's make this one 15 and this one 15.6. And then we can do more construction lines between these midpoints and between these midpoints, and then between those midpoints, all of these, just so that these stay centered with each other. If I constrain these to all be horizontal and vertical. Now they move together, even though they're not collinear. There's many ways to do that. We could have had this line run all the way through and then offset a line just for this hinge. But anyways, this is working. This will also be 15. It's going to be a really chunky part, but actually too chunky. I'm taking it back. This can be thinner since we're having two, and we want to retain the flexibility of this back piece. So if this got too thick, like this section of the strip will be less flexible than this section and this section. So we want to keep it small enough so that it doesn't matter, basically. Okay, let's see. Next up, these can be collinear. Between the hinges here, we don't need too much space. We can make it 2 millimeters. We are going to round the ends here so that they can hinge quite freely. Now let's see, what is still lacking constraint? These could be longer or shorter. Did I not? Oh, yes. How much space is going to be around the holes? That doesn't need to be too much. I'm going to go with 6 millimeters. And 6 millimeters here as well. Now, with all our constraints here, you can see all the lines have turned black. That means we can't click and drag anything anymore. Everything is fully constrained. All of these measurements tell Fusion exactly how these parts should look. Now this center line, it's more often used for rotations. I believe if I try to extrude now, oh, I can't extrude everything. Okay, so let's just do it this way then. We'll extrude. We're gonna do a symmetric extrude. I like to always use whole length just because it's more intuitive. The VHB tape, I think it's 20 millimeters. I'll measure, double check with my calipers. Yeah, just under 20. So we can make this strip 22, just give it a little bit of extra edge. Oh, whoops. Oh, haha. Yeah, I'm going to select all of those for now. I'm going to have to cut the holes out of here as a separate process, but let's do this. Let's do a mirror command and mirror both of these bodies across the right plane. We can just use the join operation since these profiles aren't touching. It'll keep it as 2 separate bodies. I can open the appearance panel and give them 2 different colors so that we make sure that we don't accidentally merge them together and not realize it for a long time. Speaking of not realizing things, I'm going to go ahead and save my project now. So, meanwhile, I will try my final biscuit, the strawberry one. I guess it has a white chocolate coating instead. Not a big fan of white chocolate, but might be it's strawberry cream. Let's see. Very good. But I think the pear was actually my favorite, so I'm officially a fan of pear flavor. Bring it to California. The US needs to know pear flavor. Okay, let me save this really quickly. Monitor to speaker mount. Easy. Okay, so yeah, I didn't consider that these holes actually want to be a revolve. So we can use this line here. Whoops. There we go. We can also make that a center line. There can be multiple center lines within one sketch. Now I can go into this feature tree, turn that sketch back on to use it for a second operation. And now if I just click here, it's gonna by default select or try to select this face, but I want to select the sketch within, so I can click and hold. Oh, sorry. I have to first go to profile. That's the other thing. When you have a center line and you click something like revolve, it'll automatically select the center line as the axis, which is nice, but in this case I just forgot. So now I go and click profile, click and hold here, and then I can select that profile. If I hold control, I can select this one as well. Oh, but now it's only half. Okay, that's okay. Let's hit okay, and then we'll actually drag this. Another fun thing with Fusion being parametric is we can go down here. There's a timeline of all the processes, and we can drag this hole we just cut to the front of the mirror. And now that hole will be mirrored as well. Next up, these rounds should be matching. What was the thickness here? 15 divided by 2? No. 22, right? So let's make that 11. And 11. So that it's a perfect round. Although, yeah. I'm going to have to make some changes. Because these circles, there's not a consistent width around here. I got a little sloppy with my sketch. Hey, welcome Pink Orange. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoy my videos. And thanks for popping in on this little stream here. So rather than making this 6, I'm going to dimension between here and the center line. Or I guess, yeah. And make that 22. Whoops. Let's constrain this. Doom, doom. 22. Now I believe, yes. Now we have a nice consistent thickness all the way around this, and the thickness of this 3.5 millimeters. It's a bit small, but you know, compact design is nice as long as we're able to tighten the little screw that's going to be in here. Will I be able to fit my thumb between these parts? So silly as it is, I can actually just use the calipers and measure the thickness of my thumb with a little bit of space. Let's say I want it roughly 27, 28 millimeters. Now I can select these two surfaces and see that here the minimum distance is 26 millimeters. So pretty good. Pretty good. I think I can accept that. That'll work. Okay, sorry. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm going to make it comfy for myself. So to do that, I'm actually just going to increase this gap, the space between these. I'll make it 5. Let's be generous. So now if you check here, it's 29 millimeters between them. And did I do something to make this thicker? Why did those become 5? Are these dimensions tied together somehow? What have I done? Oh, I clicked the wrong one there. 5. This should remain as 2. There we go. Got it. This is nice. Parametric design. So fun. You can be really quick and sloppy because you can always go back and fix it. So I'll make a lot of little mistakes like that, but it's not a big deal. In something like Blender, where your decisions are more baked in, it might be more annoying. Doesn't work for me personally. Anyways, now we've got a very simple hinge with these thin surfaces that will remain flexible. As I mentioned, these areas here will be less flexible. Those won't really curve, but they're such small lines that with the allowance of the VHB tape, which also has some thickness, I think it'll conform very well to the surfaces of my monitor and my speakers. So I'm happy with that. Next thing we're going to do is design a screw, a nut and a bolt to hold these two parts together. I'm not going to do anything too crazy. I'm not going to capture the nut inside of the design. We're doing it quick today because this design, well, I was saying this design is just for me because no one else has this combination of speakers and monitors, but I am designing this in a way that it's a little more versatile, so I should spend the time. I'm going to make this thinner. It doesn't need to be that beefy. I want a little bit of less space there. And what else do I want? Will I capture the nut? I think I will. We'll get there. For now, I'm going to do oh no. Fusion just had some big update. Apparently they've added an AI assistant, but luckily Fusion Clippy hasn't popped up for me yet. But I did notice this display component colors has come up on my menu, which, can I get rid of it? Oops. I honestly never need to work with components. My projects are simple enough that I just deal with multiple bodies within a single part. So right now I can click on these 3 dots and unselect pin to toolbar because I'm never going to use that. I can even go to change keyboard shortcut and delete that because I don't want to accidentally press Control N. So if you find yourself being sloppy like I do and then suddenly all your parts change color, then maybe it was that, and maybe you want to get rid of that shortcut. Anyways, one thing that I did add to my toolbar here is this section analysis. I use that very often. And we're going to do that now. Section analysis right through the center so we can see it like so. I can turn on the origin, select that front plane, create a sketch, and we're going to draw our bolt. So we're going to start with another center line. This is going to be a pretty simple shape. I can hit P to project and select one of these holes so that we can reference that. If I draw a diagonal line between the two and then use the point tool, I can drop a point in the center of that. That'll give us the exact center. I can select this and use midpoint. And now this is locked in the same axis as these holes. Very good. Now we can simply draw our screw. Let's go like this. It's gonna be a bolt. It's gonna have a little head on the top that we're gonna use. Oops, I forgot we only need to draw half of it. I'm gonna give it a nice tall knob for controlling. And actually the knob, no, this is fine. Just needs to be a little bit bigger. I want it to be a rather like thin, tall thing, so it's very easy to twist. We'll give it some good grip as well. I'm also going to project these two surfaces because we're probably going to need the start and end. We could click on those projections. Am I selecting the... Here, select these lines. Normally X will turn them into construction lines. It worked there, it's not working here. Not exactly sure why. Anyways, it's nice to turn a lot of projections into construction lines if you're just using them for dimensions. Just so you don't have to select as many profiles later on that get in the way. Just very little tolerance here, 0.1. How far do we want this to extend? Quite a bit, so that we can have a nice, good bolt on there with plenty of threads. Although, like I said, we're going to capture the nut, so the nut is actually going to be kind of overlapping with the bottom here a bit. I'll probably adjust this. Let's make it 10 for now. Thickness of the nut at the bottom, just gonna use my calipers. Let's go with 14. This can be pretty wide. Oh, well, yeah, I forgot it's also large. Maybe 25. This doesn't matter because we're gonna add threads there, so the inner dimension, those dimensions will change. This head, let's see what it's at. 16. Let's make it 18. Just going by vibes right now. Making this 20, nice and tall, like I said. Might still be annoying because I forgot I need 2 fingers to reach in between there. Unless I use an Allen key, but I really kind of want a lot of space between these parts to be able to adjust them with my fingers. Like 45. Either I make it 45 or I rethink how I'm connecting these. Right now it's at 32. I mean, the thickness, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be hidden. I just had a realization. This design isn't exactly going to work the way it is right now. I need 2 hinges if I want the speakers to be able to kind of wrap around enough to face me. Because these 2 will kind of just not work. Let's see if I can illustrate this. See, if one of these is connected on this flat face and the other one is connected to the back of the monitor, it'll only be able to fold like so far. And I need it to fold all the way around like this. So I'm going to need 2 hinges, I think. Which isn't going to be such a huge change, but it is a change to the design. Again, parametric design to the rescue. I'm going to go back to my original sketch. So this is how it's going to go down. I'm going to delete some things, but I'm also going to stick with a lot of things. I'm going to delete that dimension that I had there. So I'm just going to mirror everything here. And this is going to, yeah, I'm just going to add another mirror line. Check this out. It's a quick fix. It was a silly mistake, but it's a quick fix. We'll make it a center line. Now I can select, well, we can also do this later. Let's see. But yeah, we still want the distance here to be something. Now it's 58 with the double hinges. And I'm even going to make it 60. It's all going to be going backwards behind the monitor, so it won't really be visible. Oh yeah, now I'm breaking a few things, but I can just go back here, do that. That's okay. This is okay. This mirror made it a little unhappy for some reason. But now I'm just gonna mirror again. But along this axis. And boom, now we've got 2 hinges. It wasn't a big loss. It's still, let's see, what are these warnings? Compute failed, could not join, multiple bodies created. Okay, I mean, I didn't want it to join everything, so that's actually an error, but exactly what I intended. So I can ignore those, basically. Here, yeah, these edges change. I'm gonna select these. Turn off analysis here. Make these 11. Make these 11. I built it different. What is my favorite brand for TPU? I've been trying a lot of different TPUs. Certainly the really cheap ones can be a little stringier or need to be printed a bit slower. But I, for one, usually will accept that for the cost savings because I'm printing a ton. It's nice to save money. But that said, after using a lot of these cheap ones and noticing a little more like stringing and not just like, yeah, a little bit of messiness, I've come to appreciate Bamboo's TPU because my Bamboo 90A, 98HF, I think. I don't know what the HF stands for. High fidelity? I don't know. Anyways, Bamboo TPU works really well. It gives me some of the cleanest prints. That is what I used right here. Now that I plugged in my webcam better, I can show you this, which I couldn't show you last time. This little TPU edge protector I made for my drawer here, so my leg doesn't hit the sharp corner. It's not the most complicated part, but as you can see, it is very clean. That's Bamboo TPU. But what else have I used? There's so many brands. Elegoo is the one that was kind of like a little iffy, but still good enough. I think Sunlu is another one that I've used that was really good. Yeah, I mean, you can always go through my things page, and a lot of my designs, most of my designs, I'll mention the filaments I used to print certain designs. So if you just look up my designs that have flexible parts, you can look at the pictures and if it's just about visual quality, then that's one way to see the results of different filaments. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Okay, I'm gonna make a slight change here, I think. Well, no, it's all good. Now, since these are totally, there's no clamping here, so I might as well make this little tolerance here virtually 0, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be tightened together, so I'll make it 0.01. Just a little gap still so that these parts don't merge together. There we go. I think that fixed my design error. You know, I blamed these live streams for potentially me making silly mistakes. But now that I think about it, I spend so much time here just rambling and kind of like dilly-dallying with the design that I am noticing some things that maybe I wouldn't have noticed before printing a prototype earlier. Anyways, let's get back to this sketch. Now we're just going to have 2 screws. but we'll have more space for them. Ooh, but there will still be not as much space between the, oh, sorry, wrong camera. There won't be as much space between the screw and this wall, which is essentially the monitor and the speaker. That spacing is more important. Oh no, we'll be able to grab it from the side. Never mind. Everything's good. It's all good. I mean, I feel like the gap here is unnecessary, but I don't think it's hurting the design either. I think we're okay. Let's edit this sketch. I have an idea. Now that the part is split up like this, that changes the way things are printing, actually, for the better. Because now these pink parts can be printed flat, which is a better orientation for creating threads, which means I don't even need this bolt at the end. I can have this screw thread directly into this bottom part. Yeah, why not? Saves me some complexity of the design. This is gonna work out. Now this actually, I can still make it extend a little bit beyond, just so that we have something to work with. 2 millimeters. But now we want these to be close together. Well, yeah, this will change. You'll see once we get into the threads. In fact, I'll make it 0.6 just so it's a more clear separation. Okay. Let's revolve this now. Select all the profiles, revolve it around that center line. It gives us a new body since we dimensioned gaps between every part. That's all good. Keeping it very simple, just got these cylinders and squares for now. We'll make it pretty later. Time to add threads. Now, just a little bit of, just to let you know, I'm going to be using some custom threads that I designed for 3D printing, which I haven't made available yet because this is still a work in progress. But to be frank, well, let's get right into it. I'll show you. For those of you who haven't done threads before, it's a nifty built-in tool into Fusion here. You go to the drop-down menu, select thread. You can select both an inner and outer dimension. So why don't we start with this one? We select that, and now you've got all these different thread types. If you click modeled, then it'll create the physical threads. And when you look at all the different ones that are, all the threads available here, these are more designed for traditional manufacture. These are a lot of different standards that exist for thread design. And you'll notice that pretty much all of them have a kind of steep thread, because generally that is better. It'll provide better grip, it'll be stronger. But with 3D printing, you all know I like to keep things at 45 degrees or less in terms of steepness, just so that we can just have the best print quality. It's a good general rule that I stick with. I don't like overhangs more than 45 degrees when I'm printing something without supports, and I almost always avoid printing with support. With that said, I will concede that threads generally can handle overhangs better than if you were to just print a flat overhang. The fact that these overhangs are spiraling upwards in the way that a thread prints, it actually works okay. But I've been working on my own custom thread designs. So you can see here, I've got these make anything print threads. And if I select that, you'll see, well, for one thing, they're much larger. Nice for creating strong threads. But also, they're 45 degrees. I'm definitely going to make a video about this down the line once I have it all figured out. As you can see, I have a lot of different dimensions here, but you know, I've started at 7mm and gone up to 30 before I start doing increments of 5, and then I've done increments of 10 after 60, because I've been doing this the old school way. I've been manually writing the code for all of these different dimensions, not only the different diameters, but also different thread sizes for each diameter. I've just been editing the code like a sucker because I'm not smart enough to write a program that automatically, you know, fills in all the different thread diameters from 7 to 700, but that's kind of what I want. And also, I tried using Microsoft Copilot, and it sucked. Like, it did the job, but with plenty of errors, to the point where I ended up preferring to do it all manually. So anyways, just so you know, if I didn't have those, the standard, what are they? Like, maybe not the ANSI. I like these pipe threads because they're rounded. I would look for one of these that's not too steep and not too intense. Isometric screws probably would work fine. But mine are a little better. Keep an eye out for them. Make some noise if you want to see them sooner. Anyways, generally you want about 3+ rows of threads to engage to get a good grip. So here with the 2.4mm threads, we get 4 of these rows of threads. That's perfect. So we can click remember size. We want to do the same thread here. Although actually, this is going to be a symmetrical design all the way down the line. So I'm going to undo this mirror, and I'm just going to work on half of the design for now. And I'll mirror it later down the line, so I don't have to do all of this twice. But if we select this cylinder now. Oh, hold on. What happened here? Why is this split? Did I split that? Or did I? Oh. There we go. A little gap that I didn't account for. Now if I select this piece, we can use the same thread tool. I had it remember what I selected for the other one. I also have 3 different classes, like different tightnesses of threads. We're just going to go with standard here. If I turn on this body, you can now see that because it's using the same settings, we have perfectly lined up threads. The way I created these, they have the appropriate clearance for 3D printing. If you were using one of those other threads, what you can do is select one of these thread surfaces, use press pull, and then you can go -0.1, -0.2 or something. Well, maybe not that much. But just like that, you can add more clearance between the parts. A lot of people like to do that with the standard screws. Add 0.1 clearance. This thread, we don't need this going all the way through like that. So we'll go back here and we can unselect full thread and just pull this up until it's just a little bit higher than it needs to be. Like so. Now we've got 2 threads, but if you look at the bottom edge of these, you got them coming to like this really sharp point. And there's not really anything guiding the threads together. Like if you look at a nut and a bolt, they've got nice chamfers on them. If we just try to chamfer this, it might kind of work, but it's also a little weird looking. So here's the best way, in my opinion, to make these parts quickly fit together really well. First, let's name all this. CPU connection. mid, hinge, bottom. Some terrible names, but I know what they mean, so that's all that really matters. And bolt. So we're gonna hide everything except for the bolt so we can focus on that first. First thing I'll do is select this top surface and create a sketch on here. Now, luckily I have this top part of the bolt, which I can project to get a center point that is the same center point for this whole thing. But after creating the thread, you see, now we've got this kind of off-centered circle just because of the nature of threads. But now we can create a center point circle using that projected center point, and we're just gonna make this just smaller, small enough so that it's not touching any of these bottom edges. Maybe a little smaller. I do go by eye here. We'll create another circle that is much larger now. Now we can select all of these profiles, hit E to extrude, extrude up towards the bolt, and do a taper of -45. And that creates a kind of chamfer, but it's a lot cleaner than if we were just using the chamfer tool. Now it does taper the, there's this kind of flat face on the threads. That disappears at the top here. So you can select that and re-add a chamfer there. 0.15, I think, is what, yeah, 0.15 will match this. That cleans it up a little as well. And there we go. Just like that, now the end of the screw will interface with the bolt and line up much more easily. We can also do something similar here, where there's this weird transition between the non-threaded part and the thread. I'm going to draw on that face, and then I'm going to project this circle, and then I'm going to select it all, extrude upwards, -45 again, and this time I'm going to use join. So that's just going to blend the thread together into this straight part a little nicer as well. Now we do have to make sure that that isn't going to interfere with the part that it's screwing into, but as you saw, I made this thread go a little bit higher, so sure enough, it's not going to be causing any problems. So now we've got a nice threaded part of this bolt. That's how I do all of the threads for all of the parts that I have involving threads. I always clean them up like that. And we'll pretty much do the same thing for this, the outer thread. So we'll select this face first. Now, instead of making everything slightly smaller, once again, you can see it pops up this constraint. It's actually referencing this outer curve, which matched the cylinder. Otherwise, you could create an axis or something to keep that reference before you make the threads. But anyways, we have this centered properly, and I'm just going to make this a bit larger than the widest part of this off-centered circle that forms the threads. We could also check the dimension between these two, and at this thickness it doesn't really matter. If it was a thinner, more compact part, we'd want to make sure that it's a multiple of the nozzle width of our print. Doesn't matter here, but I'll do it anyways. Let's make it 3 millimeters. Now I'll select all of this, extrude towards the thread, taper it -45 again, and then we get that nice clean chamfer again. We want to do that on the bottom as well. So either we repeat that process, or I can select this face, construct a midplane, select that extrusion we did, and mirror the feature across that midplane. So that'll kind of do the same thing but much quicker. Now we can hide this. So there we go. It does remove some of the thread, but it makes it much cleaner. If we do a section analysis, we can see that still like a good 4 threads that are engaging. And also we can do the same thing on these inner threads where we'll chamfer this last bit, 0.15. So it doesn't have any super sharp overhangs. Cleaner printing, a more gentle way for the 2 parts to thread together. Okay. I feel like I've done designs in the past where I did put a loose screw underneath the part, and now I'm wondering why I haven't done this before, where it's just like screwing into the hinge itself. I hope this works. Hopefully I'm not just missing something very obvious. Anyways, that looks good. Now we can just pretty much start doing some of the cleanup. I guess another big thing we want to do, while this would work, we could probably grab this dowel end and just twist it with our fingers. It'll be a huge improvement to add just a little bit of grip. So I'm going to draw on this top face here, project it so we have that center point, draw a line up, and I'm just going to do a nice and easy grip, just some vertical channels. So I'll create a circle here. Let's make it 5 millimeters. I just want to overlap it so that it creates a nice cutout. It doesn't have to be like aligned to the center or anything. I'm doing it by eye again. I'm not even going to fully dimension this sketch because I don't think it's necessary. Now we can select that and extrude downward. And since this bottom part of this bolt is actually going to be like squeezing the hinge, I don't want this channel to be cut out all the way to the bottom. I'm going to leave a gap here. So let's see, how tall was this? 20 millimeters. I'm just going to make this go down 16. And if you think about it, you're really only going to be twisting from the very top for the most part. Let's hide this for a second so that we can just see things a bit better. We can clean this up. This is going to be printing upside down like this. So we do want to get rid of this overhang. It's not, probably would print just fine, but it'll print nicer if we chamfer this. And we'll just chamfer it until it won't let us chamfer it anymore. More or less. There we go. Then we'll add a fillet as well. That big fillet just to make it look a little prettier, and then one final fillet just to make sure that this edge, we do want like a nice grip, but still we probably don't want a totally sharp point. If we make this 0.6 millimeters, it'll be a little bit more comfortable. Of course, we want more than just this one channel. We want these all the way around. And what we can do now is go down to the feature tree. We'll start by clicking that first cutout we did, but we can hold shift and click all the way to the last one to select all of those operations at once. Then we're going to use circular pattern. We're going to pattern those features around the axis that is this bolt. So you can click just any face that is following that axis. We can select there, we can select just the circular edge. It all works. And now we'll just increase this until it looks good. 7 seems to be doing the job. We can click here and see that it's, or let's see, select these 2 points, minimum distance of 2.3. So that should print quite nicely. And to make it a little prettier on the top, let's see if we can give that 0.6 millimeter chamfer as well. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna create a circle here. This is just a different way to do a slightly different looking chamfer. Now I'm just gonna select this circular profile. I'm gonna extrude all the way up through this screw and switch it to intersect and taper 45 degrees outward. That's like a chamfer, but just a little nicer looking, I think. And then we can also fillet it. This could also be done as a circular pattern, but it's only 7 edges, so there we go. I think that looks nice. It's a big old chunky bolt we got here. Let's turn everything back on, look at the section analysis, see what looks good and what doesn't. Overall looks pretty good. Here, let's see, we've got 1.5 millimeters of overlap. I wonder if I should make that a little bit larger, because this is where the pressure is going to be coming from. Let's see what happens. Let's see if I don't break my whole design. I actually know, because I didn't dimension the circles for this cutout, it's going to get a little wonky, but I'm going to go all the way back to when I first sketched out this thread, and I'm going to turn this up to 20. Just a little bit more of an edge to overlap with the hinge, so it can do its job a little better. And yeah, sure enough, like I expected, it broke a little up here. All I have to do is go back to this circle and move it. If I want to do things right, I can add a point here and dimension this so that it'll adjust together. It's still a little unhappy because we had this chamfer that was very specific. There we go. And that fixes it. The circle's also a little different here. Kind of looks a bit nicer, but I think I liked how it was before. There we go. There wasn't a shortcut for toggling the analysis. It's just in the feature tree here, you can click the eyeball on and off. Of course, here I only have the one analysis, so it just by default still has that selected. You might also have to drop down if you have multiple section analyses. You can turn them off on either one. There probably is a shortcut actually, but I don't know what it is. Let's see. Oh, yeah, if you click on this and hit V, that's hardly saving you any time. Is Fusion better than SolidWorks? Honestly, I don't know, because I used Fusion for many years, I used SolidWorks for a long time, and then I switched to Fusion, but I haven't like gone back and forth. I've never used them at the same time. So I'm not sure what state SolidWorks is in nowadays. Probably been a good 6-7 years since I used it. It probably can handle more complex projects, but for 3D printing design, Fusion is like at a really sweet spot. And they both crash, sometimes for very stupid reasons. So unfortunately, there's not a clear winner when it comes to that. Okay, I think we're pretty much done functionally. we can start doing the cleanup stage of things. Of course, those final fillets and things are not, they are functional. They're adding strength, and I'll talk you through it. But I think at this point, we are ready to mirror this design and see it a little more in its full form. So I'll select all the bodies and mirror them there across that hinge. There we go. Just for fun now, mostly for fun, I'm gonna complete my color coding of every part separately. That's a bit dramatic. All right. So we'll start with the biggest things. We can do some pretty big fillets here. These are going to be printing flat against the build plate with this large surface, so no problems with adding a fillet here. It only reinforces the strength and kind of, also because these parts are going to be bent, it kind of tapers out the flexibility of these parts that will be printed in TPU. So I have a feeling that'll be a good move. If I make this a 7mm fillet, you can see it starts to overlap with these hinges, which we don't like, but we're gonna go right ahead and add some chamfers to these faces as well. That handles that. One thing is, well, first of all, it doesn't totally handle it. I think it's still overlapping a little bit, so maybe we'll make that fillet a little smaller. Let's make it 6. There we go. That's pretty much perfect. But, so I do want a matching chamfer here at this hinge as well. I can make that one, but I'm not sure I want the chamfer to extend all the way to this thin strip. Actually, I do. But let's say I didn't. Then I would just go back on the feature tree to before I did the fillet. Then I could fillet this edge because it has an abrupt ending. And then there's some weird stuff that goes on. There'd be some, you'd have to play around a bit more. Like now you could do second fillet like that. Let's say this is a 0.5 chamfer. Let's see what happens if I fillet this edge now. It does get pretty wacky. Yeah, like there's some like fine line here where you can kind of make it work. Not the prettiest transition. At some point in the live stream, we'll probably have to get into some more like surface modeling to be able to handle really interesting transitions like that. Of course, you've always got the good old... Oh, sorry. This is another weird thing about Fusion. With fillets, you can do a variable fillet, which is pretty fun sometimes. You can say, here I want it to be 1 in the middle, but maybe 0 at the ends. You get this very nice transition. Why can't they have that option with chamfers? I think it should be an option. Anyways, we are going to make this, keep this as 1, but we want the chamfer to actually follow around the entire edge here. So first we're going to do this. We're going to do some 2mm fillets around these faces. Again, besides looking prettier, rounding these corners out will, for one thing, prevent curling up when printing. With TPU, that's hardly ever an issue, but something to keep in mind. But it'll also just make it harder. It'll make it less likely that the parts peel off in normal use. Like rounding, I don't know how to explain it, to be honest. Just getting rid of sharp corners is generally nice. Besides looking nice, it tends to work more cleanly. Have I ever tried Onshape? I did play around with it a little bit, but it was around the same time that I started using Fusion, so I didn't really see the need to use both. And, you know, to be honest, I'm basically sponsored by Fusion. They're not paying me, but I get the software for free. Everyone can get it for free, but I get like the fully educational, like full mechanical properties, whatever. I don't really use all the fancy stuff. I can save as many files as I want, basically. But yeah, I didn't like the cloud storage thing with Onshape. Fusion is also cloud storage, but you can at least export projects to be offline. That's one thing I liked more about SolidWorks now that I think about it. That could run entirely offline. Fusion, I believe you need to connect to the internet at least occasionally in order to keep it running. Which, you know, that's the nature of so many programs nowadays, and it's quite annoying. Okay. Is there anything else I want to do? Not really. I'll do little chamfers here. Just let's do 0.3, just in case there's any squashing of the first layer from the 3D print. Oh, and here we can clean these up as well, a tiny bit with some small chamfers. Maybe 0.4 millimeters. Let's see how that looks in the section analysis. Aha. We've also got these inner surfaces. That's why section analysis is very handy. We want to chamfer all of these as well. 0.4. Just so there's no edges snagging onto things. Exactly, Hank. Onshape, in order to have any privacy with your files, you have to pay for the subscription, I believe. So that doesn't work for most people, actually, unless you're doing things entirely just for fun. Which, also, yeah, if you're coming up with grand inventions that you're going to be selling, then you should probably also pay for Fusion. So, maybe you want to learn Blender or FreeCAD or OpenSCAD. All the really tedious ones are unfortunately the ones that are the most open. All right, finished my coffee. I don't think I'm gonna finish all my pastries today. It was a lot, but they were very delicious. I think I'm pretty happy with how everything looks. I will be curious with like the VHB tape really covering all of these surfaces, whether there will still be any drooping with the design. But of course I can just adjust how I stick the printed part to my speaker and to the monitor. I can like pre-angle the parts so that it accounts for the droop and they end up facing the way I want them to. So I'm not too worried. In my mind, this will still be working really well. It will be fun to see how it looks in practice. Yeah, I think I'm happy with it now. The only other thing I could think of is maybe to like cut out some material here in these hinges in the middle. But I think it would pretty much just be aesthetic. It's easier to just adjust the print settings, right? Use lower infill or more walls. So, I think it's a pretty nice. Ooh, woohoo! I know. One thing I did not think about yet. Because these are printing this way, there's a little bit of a nasty overhang here. You know, I'm not a fan of these overhangs. I should have dealt with this earlier. Let's see how far back I want to go to do this in a nice way. I guess I just need to go to before the chamfers. Maybe before the mirroring. Oh no, not affecting that. Just this part. Okay. All I'm gonna do here is actually it's a good thing I left enough space between these two hinges, because now I can keep the strength here. So first thing I was gonna do, I'll create a center line, and I'll create a line. If I hold, oops, if I start a line from a circle like this, oh, why is it doing a weird double click thing? There we go. If I hold shift, it'll immediately apply a tangent constraint. Oh, or a perpendicular constraint. I didn't know that. You can do a perpendicular or tangent, apparently, depending on exactly how the lines draw. Oh, it's getting a little buggy. Anyways, wow. Okay. I guess it depends. If you're like looking more perpendicular when you press shift, it'll lock to perpendicular. If it's looking more tangent, then it'll still lock to perpendicular. Okay. From the get-go, if you just draw a line and hold shift, perpendicular. It's not that big of a deal anyways. It just saves one step. I'm going to draw that line, draw a line here to the center line. I'm going to make this dimension 45 degrees. That's the maximum overhang I want. And then I can decide how much I want the print to bridge. Basically, I just want it to not intersect with this circle. So it's going to depend from one print to the other. Here, let's see, this is 3 millimeters. So 6 millimeters in total. It can droop a little tiny bit. So I like there to be a little bit of a gap here. I'll select those both and mirror them. Basically, I can cut this away. That's how I create a circle overhang. It looks a little awkward, not super pretty, but it works pretty well for most cases. Now, if I want to maintain the consistent distance between the inner and outer walls here, I can select these and offset them to match. What is that? Was it exactly 3? What did I do? 3.2? Oh, no. It was some weird number. Well, $3.2. Huh. Yeah. Offset it the same amount. So then I can do that extrude cut and then do the same extrusion here. A little bit nicer. And because there's a 3.2 distance, we can also add a 3.2 fillet here, and that'll really keep it nice and clean. And equidistant all around. I am going to do this for both of these hinges, but they're identical, so I don't need to do the design twice, except if I wanted to visualize it. I can also take this little chamfer and make sure I'm chamfering all those edges. There we go. Even with TPU, which does droop a little bit more, this little change should deal with that. Should print nice and clean, support free. Okay. Now we're done. At this point, I'm gonna remove these two redundant parts. I can just right click and remove. Pretty much always you want to use the remove command instead of delete, because delete will delete all the previous references to them in the design. Remove just removes them at this point in the timeline. You can also move that command around. You can suppress it if you want to unremove them. It's a lot less destructive to use remove versus delete. Yeah, all these other parts are unique. So finally, I'll use the align tool. Select the faces that will be going against the printer bed, and then clicking on the top plane, flipping them if necessary, and aligning everything how I want it to print. They're all overlapping, but we're going to save them individually, so that doesn't matter. Just taking a quick last peek. I don't think there's anything else I need to change. I'm pretty happy with this. And yeah, I'm actually glad I ended up going with this double hinge design, because in a lot of ways it's better. It means that I can print these inner hinges in a solid material, and only these outer parts have to be flexible TPU to fit up to conform to my to the parts they're connecting to. Should be more versatile, actually. Okay. If you've watched any of my streams or any of my videos, you know how to export. So okay, it won't reveal any of my files, so I'll show you real quick. Up here, very top of the browser tree, right click on the item that has the name of your file, save as mesh, and just make sure you change the structure to one body per file. My refinement settings are set to high, so that's good. Hit OK, save, and it'll save all of those 4 bodies separately. There's our design. We're going to bring them into Bamboo Slicer now, or the slicer of your choice. As a matter of fact, I usually do my TPU prints on my Cheedy Q1 Pro. For one thing, the print quality is comparable to the X1 Carbon, but also I have my AMS connected to the X1 Carbon, and it doesn't like my TPU filaments. There are some TPUs now that Bamboo designs specifically for use with AMS, but I don't use those. So yeah, why don't I open up Cheedy Studio? Got to give them some love too. I'm always showing things in Bamboo Studio because more people use it. Fair. It's a pretty awesome slicer, but I'm also very happy with my Cheedy printers. Sometimes a little more finicky, but way cheaper. That's worth something. Alrighty. I'm just dragging all the files into here. I'm going to select no, I don't want them to be merged as a single part. Now I can separate them. And like I said, this part here, this is going to be flexible. So that needs to be on its own plate. That's going to be printed separately. I'm going to select my Cheaty Pro here. Because, well, with any file, with any model, I would do this, but specifically with TPU, the seams can be a little messier depending on the material. So it's nice to use seam painting to put it somewhere that it's not going to affect the functional aspects of the design. So basically just that. Here on the inside, it'll probably automatically, well, yeah. It usually goes along an edge, which can be nice, but I think here it might be better to just do it that way. We'll draw that seam on. And these can all be printed with a solid filament. PLA would probably work okay, but these are gonna be under duress. Light duress, but duress nonetheless. So probably better to print these in PETG or ABS or ASA. But yeah, a little bit of seam painting here. I always like to go with a little squiggle just for fun. And on the bolt, doesn't really matter. Of course, we want to print 2 of these. Whoops. Get over there. And 2 of these. Depending on how confident you are in your print settings, you might only want to print 1 at a time. I'm not going to bother to show you guys all the print settings here, but let's see what's worth mentioning with threads. These threads are pretty big. As you saw, I used my custom 3D printing threads. They're made to print well, so with the standard 0.16 millimeter print quality, they should print just fine. But sometimes if you want really clean threads or just are printing very small threads, you can go with a 0.12 millimeter layer height, something like that. Not much else to say. I'll just make sure to print these quite beefy. I'll probably give them 5 or 6 walls. These TPU ones, I'm going to make sure this bottom part is completely solid. And the rest of it, yeah, it'll probably end up being mostly solid, if not completely solid. And then for these parts, yeah, the bolts, they are printing in a weaker orientation, since the forces that are pulling on the bolt are kind of pulling apart the print layers. It's not 100% ideal. I could have mitigated it, but because I made the bolts so thick, that was kind of my solution. So by making these 5-6 walls or even solid, they'll be plenty strong enough. There will be great layer adhesion, especially printing with the materials I mentioned. So that's going to be that. Once again, I'm not going to show the printing this live stream, but I'll give you all an update next time. And maybe I'll even make a short about this one. I think it's a pretty fun design. If it works as well as I hope, I think it's pretty nifty. So there we go. Clocked in at just over 2 hours. Pretty good considering how much I was talking, I think. All right. Well, unless anyone has any final questions before I wrap it up, I think that's going to be it. Of course, you're always welcome to leave comments after the fact. They'll pop up and stay underneath the live stream. So that's cool. Good way for me to answer questions if there's any common questions that lots of people will end up asking anyways. It's really handy for you to ask them down there. I mean, I could finish my pastry. I'm so close, but I don't think I'll enjoy it as much as I did at the start. I'm pretty tired, so I'm glad that I managed. Thanks for hanging around, everyone. It's good to see a lot of regular people coming in week after week. That's super fun. Uh, hopefully the crowd will grow a little bit over time. Still building up my audience with the live streams, but thanks y'all. You're helping me make it better every time. Yes, the custom threads is definitely something I plan on making a video for. And you know what? I'll make it bump it up a little bit in priority in terms of finishing all the different dimensions so that I can have a nice, full, high quality what is it? A code for y'all to use to make your custom threads as well. Awesome. Clearly I'm tired. I'm not gonna do a great wrap up this time, but thank you so much. Love y'all. As always. Stay inspired. Have a lovely week. It's March. Spring is around the corner. The snow is melting here in Sweden. Finally, it's starting to get warm. Unfortunately, the mosquitoes are already coming out. Every part of the year has its pros and cons, but that's the cycle of life.